I'm joined now by an NBA player branding and business development agent who represents a variety of basketball players, including Iman Shumpert, Marcus Smart, Spencer Dinwiddie, John Wall, among others. On behalf of myself and Brandeis University, Brandon Curran, thank you for taking the time to join the program today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here and hopefully provide some insight.
A graduate of UC Berkeley, double majoring in communications and business administration, what originally brought you into the sports marketing industry?
Yeah, so I grew up in Los Angeles playing high school basketball. So that's when I first fell in love with the space. And I thought I had a chance to go to the NBA, which I was good, but I was like a 6'2" center. So like obviously wasn't good or had a career path there. So my calculus teacher in 11th grade told me when I asked him what he asked what we wanted to be, I said NBA player. He said, "You're not going to be an NBA player." So and I was like, well, I guess I'll be an agent without really knowing what that meant. So I just started doing a bunch of internships. I started working for the Cal Athletics Department. That led to something with the Golden State Warriors. Then I worked for CAA in their sports group. Then I also did internships with IMG, Wasserman, CBS Interactive, et cetera. And from there, I kind of really found my niche, and that was just in the sports agency world, specifically NBA.
Do you think that combination of internships and positions with an NBA franchise and CBS is it gives you different perspectives?
To be honest, no. I always say I wish I got less agency experience and more brand experience. Because if you want to work in the agency world, you kind of have to position yourself as like a value add. Like, because agencies run very lean, so it's like, why should I pay to bring you on board? If you have relationships with the previous agencies you worked at, that's not really helpful because those are basically our competitors. So that wouldn't be helpful. So what you would want to focus on is, hey, what can I bring day one? So one of my former interns, his name's Sunny Piplani, he worked for Li Ning, and then he worked for various agencies as well. And when you have a big brand name like that, he has an immediate value add to agencies because he can introduce them to a big footwear and apparel company. So you want to have, if you want to work on the agency side, specifically like player marketing, if you have relationships with brands you previously worked at, that could lead to potential partnerships and revenue for the agency. That'll help you out a lot in terms of securing it and kind of bringing not only revenue to the agency, but real world experience.
So you're saying that, and I guess an example here is that, having connections with people at Walmart or TD Bank is better than say, oh, I have another connection and my best friend works at a competitor here.
Yeah, no, and it's good to know what's going on at other agencies and have those relationships. Like you never want to view it as an us versus them mentality because you never know when you might need to like switch or hop over. But in terms of your day-to-day work, like if I'm doing player marketing deals for X player, my connections at another agency isn't going to be helpful. I will need connections at brands that I can bring for this player.
What is the role of understanding trends, statistics, and quantitative data in your profession?
So I'd say you have to kind of understand what the league is doing with it, specifically the team level. So what you've seen with the NBA recently, or not recently, but over the last like 5 to 10 years is really a shift towards shooting more threes. And that's kind of just based on statistics and analysis. So you kind of want to understand it from a sense of like, okay, if this is what teams are valuing, this is the kind of players they're going to be looking for. So I should recruit certain players who fit this bill. And just always being aware of the conversations and the changes in the space is always going to be useful as well.
How does that apply then to the marketing side of it and what brands you're approaching and how you're trying to get the best opportunities for clients?
I would say it doesn't directly apply. The best way is a guy plays well, he's going to get more followers and he's going to have a larger presence. He's going to be in the media more and he's going to have a higher profile, which will then lead to more deals.
I know every day is a different day. However, what does a traditional day look like for you?
Traditional day, I basically kind of describe my days in two separate parts, offense and defense. Defense is probably the first half of the day. That's just maintaining current deals that are going on, anything that they need in terms of deliverables or contract negotiations or anything like that. And then the second half of the day is what I call like offense. That's reaching out to new brands, creating new relationships, having calls with new brands, kind of having those conversations as well. So it's a lot of maintaining what's currently going on and then building for future business as well.
Working with a variety of clients and brands, how do you find your job differs when you work with one versus the other?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a good way to put it. So a brand is usually a group of people. So it's rare that you'll work with a brand that's one person. It's usually a team, maybe 5 to 10 people. So you're going to get a lot of different opinions there. But my value is I work for the players. So I'm always going to be the best representative of the player. I will always be on the player's side. I'll always kind of be, if I need to like defend them or discuss their schedule or get them more time or anything like that, like I'm very much a conduit between the two, but I'm always going to be on the player side, kind of just working in their best interests at all times. The brand side is great, but I'll be talking to a number of people there. Usually there'll be a lead, but there'll be a whole team over there. So it's pretty much 1 versus 5 or 10.
Do you find your job has changed over the span of this pandemic? And how do you envision the industry may change in the future? The industry being the sports marketing industry.
Yeah, I would say it's gotten a lot less cool. Just kidding. But there's a lot less productions than there used to be. So like there's a lot less traveling, obviously. There's a lot less in-person productions, but it is kind of nice in that sense. And that's how it's changing, and that a lot of productions have gone online via Zoom. So stuff that would have previously been in person. And if you have to think about it from a player's perspective, if they need to film usually during the season, you're not going to get a guy to fly out of their main city to somewhere to film. Like that's just not going to happen. But what you will do is you'll have a production go to the city that they're in. And that obviously costs a lot more money. You have to pay for people's hotels, you have to rent facilities, teams, all that. So Zoom has made it a lot easier in that sense. So I could see a lot more of that. There will be certain productions that will be more focused on, okay, this has to be in person if it's just too demanding, but there'll also be a lot more Zoom ones because oftentimes if it's just a conversation similar to this, it works fine.
And do you think that will happen again in the future or will continue to happen?
Yeah, I think it will, because brands can save money on production costs, and then they could get play. And then that's good because our players can get more money too.
That's my question when you were talking about players during the season. During basketball season, do you find the speed and pace of your job slows down as your clients focus on basketball, or not as much, as you're always looking for the best opportunities for your clients?
It's interesting. I mean, they have less free time, but they're also more relevant, so they could get more deals and stuff. So it really depends. I like the summer because you kind of have a lot more leeway in their schedule. Oftentimes, the hardest part of my job is I could be talking to a brand for months, finally get a deal, and then we just can't find a time to schedule it. So that can always be frustrating.
How do you think the growth of name, image, likeness deals has changed both the sports marketing and sports contract industries?
Yeah, I'd say first, it's not a substitute for paying players. So NCAA players should still be paid because 99% of NCAA, there's like 400,000 NCAA athletes, 99% of them aren't going to be getting deals that are paid or of significant value. What I will say that it has changed is it's really changed the dynamic in terms of how agency recruiting goes. So previously, you used to wait until, for basketball, for example, their team got kicked out of the tournament or whatever it was. So that would be in like March or April, and then you would have the meeting, and in that meeting, so like the final recruiting meeting, you would say, hey, we can get you XYZ deals if you sign with us. But now what's kind of changed is it's almost like agencies are doing internships for players for a year, where it's like, okay, I'm going to sign you for NIL with the hopes of signing you for player representation as well. But during that time that I'm signed with you, I have to get you deals and be able to show you love. So it's an interesting paradigm shift, and it's good because you can see who really can like do deals for you and who can just like talk about doing deals for you.
I wanted to circle back to my first question about what originally brought you into the sports industry and ask you what you've learned about yourself and why do you keep doing it? Is there something that you've learned about the players or about yourself that you've just never thought you'd know?
Yeah, I really just like the personal aspect of it. I like working with guys for a number of years, seeing them grow in terms of like 18, 19-year-old kids and then guys with families, getting married and all that. So I think that's what my personal motivation is. I think from a larger perspective, there's been just a lot of shifts, like in the macro sense of what's going on with everything you're seeing with kind of the crypto space and NFTs. And it's just very exciting developments. And what's great is these players have highly engaged audiences. So whatever the new technology or the new wave is, these guys will be on the forefront because they have a captive audience to share it with.
I don't think my listeners are aware, but I am an intern with you, and I'm working with you this semester. And I think what's interesting from my perspective is the players that I named off at the beginning, whether it's Marcus Smart, Spencer Dinwiddie, John Wall, Iman Shumpert, what they do behind the scenes and outside of basketball. Iman Shumpert now retired, and Marcus Smart when he goes home after practice or after a game, what they do in their personal time, whether it's business, whether it's philanthropy in the community. I think it's just so engaging because we do see what they do on the court, and it is very impressive. But what they do off the court is even more impressive because, in all honesty, their careers, max careers, 10, 15 years. What they do off the court is tremendous and going to be with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. No, and I think that's interesting as well. Iman's not retired. He's waiting more so for the good opportunity to come back because he kind of has a variety of skills, and he's currently just crushing it on Dancing with the Stars, which, I mean, his ability to learn like a 1 minute highly choreographed dance skit is incredibly impressive. Not only his footwork, but kind of his just abilities to learn quickly. But from there, I always like to say it might be hard for someone like me or you to relate to someone who's they're 6'8", 220 pounds. But if they like the same video games, they wear the same clothing brands, they like the same music, that can really draw a deeper connection and relationship as well. And that's what I think the NBA is kind of leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. They really have the deepest connections. Like when you're watching a guy on TV playing, you not only know like his athletic ability, his personality, what his off the court interests are, if he's a good dresser, a bad dresser, or if he has a passion for this or that. So I think that's what's really exciting about the NBA space is the level of connections and relationships you can have.
I would agree. I just look on social media of other professional sports leagues and the interviews that they try to mimic off the NBA, how the NBA carries itself, the players that they utilize to promote the league and the brand. The NFL, MLB, hockey is trying to replicate that, yet the NBA seems to be out in front.
Yeah, the NBA, because the NBA has some natural advantages. It's the smallest. There's only 450
You're courtside.
guys. As you said, what?
You're courtside.
Yeah, you're courtside, but like even from a fan, there's only 450 players in the NBA. There's 1,800 NFL players. So you can be a great offensive lineman and no one can know your name. But if you're a good basketball player, there's a much higher chance. And then the NBA as a league is just very open to new ideas, and they're very progressive in that sense. So they always kind of lead the charge. And it's accepting if a player, NBA players are celebrated for having successful off the court businesses and multiple identities, while other sports can be more critical of that and think it implies you're not focused enough on your main sport.
The creator of Social Chair, an app available on the App Store that allows users to make and schedule plans with one another. How has that experience changed your perception of mobile technology and outlook of the mobile app industry?
Yeah, so Social Chair is my app that I've been working on for a few years now. It's an app to make and share plans with your friends. So instead of having to rely on texting in a group chat, you can share to the app and your friends will get a notification. It's been a really beneficial experience because it's helped me reframe how I view problems. So for my job, traditionally, I would just be doing kind of things on a linear path. But when you kind of have to build a product from scratch and you have to come up with all these different, like, okay, what's the onboarding process going to look like? Where's there going to be a button here? Like, what is the screen going to look like? What is this functionality going to look like? Okay, this functionality works in this situation, but what about XYZ edge cases? So it really helps you kind of approach problems from a solution-oriented perspective. So now, whenever anything's going on in life, I don't really get distracted by like all the other like nice frills. I basically want to focus on, okay, what goal am I trying to reach? What is my North Star? And what is the most direct way to get there as well? And that's kind of how I approach everything with even the deals I'm doing and the negotiations. Like, okay, where do I want to get with this? How do I want to get there? And I don't want to get distracted by XYZ. I want to just focus on what really matters.
A number of Brandeis students are pursuing business degrees and or interested in the sports marketing industry. What advice do you have for them as they prepare to enter the workforce in the coming years?
Yeah, I would say the best thing that they can do is get experience and network. There's not any like one class that will teach you like the business of sports or teach you like the theory that will come up in an interview or something. The best thing you can do is just get experience, get those big brand names on your resume, and then just network. Like everyone here, I assume, is in college, so you have an advantage in the sense that you can reach out to anyone on LinkedIn and they should want to help you. Maybe reach out to 10 people and 3 reply. That's still a great hit rate. And then you can start building relationships. And once you make that connection, you just say, hey, can I talk to you for 10 to 15 minutes? Would love to learn about your job. Then you have that rapport. And then let's say a job opens up at that company in 6 to 12 months. Then you can hit up that person and be like, hey, saw this cool opportunity. I attached my resume. Would love to be considered. and boom, you just skipped 80% of the hard part of getting a job, which is getting off the website and the black hole of the online portal.
Fantastic. Brandon Curran, thank you for joining the show today and providing rare insight.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. I appreciate you having me.